This is lesson 9.5, mean absolute deviation from chapter 9. Now, in the previous lesson, we learned about interquartile range, which was nothing but a measure of variation. And in this lesson, we are also going to deal with another measure of variation, and this is called as the mean absolute deviation. Now, the mean absolute deviation, it's also given as MAD, like MAD. It is an average of how much the data values differ from the mean. Okay, so that's where you get the mean. So that's the average. Absolute, remember we learned about absolute value, which was the distance from 0. Here mean absolute means how much the mean is away from the actual mean of the data. We'll look at that in a minute. And then deviation, D stands for deviation. Deviation means how much does it differ from. When you say don't deviate from the topic, that means don't go way off of the topic, things like that. All right, let's go ahead. There are 4 steps you have to follow in order to find the mean absolute deviation, and pretty much if you follow these 4 steps, and that's it. That's the whole lesson. And it's not that hard. It just needs a little bit of patience and focus. Okay, so first we have to find the mean of the data, of the entire data, and we all know how to find the mean of the data. You will add up all numbers and all values and divide by how many ever values there are. We all know this, right? Okay, how many values. Then the second one is find the distance, not difference, distance between each data value and the mean. That means how far is the mean from the data value. We'll look at it in a minute. The third step is to find the sum of the distances. So whatever you find in this step, you're going to find the sum of it in the third step. And the last one is to divide the sum in step 3, what you get here, by the total number of data values. Basically, you're finding the mean again. In the end, you find the mean of the distance again. That's what it is. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at the first problem. Okay, it says find and interpret the mean absolute deviation of the data. Now, in the previous lesson, I noticed that maybe 3 or 4 students, or not even, wrote what the interpretation was, and that's why I took your points off. In this lesson, make sure that you write what the interpretation means. It's not enough that you find the answer. What does it mean? What does that number mean? And also, don't forget the units. If you look in problem 1, there are no units, but in problem 2, there is a unit. They're talking about weight of books and pounds. So we'll go to that in a minute, but you have to include what that number means. All right, let's go ahead and do the first one. Let's find the step 1. Find mean. So when you find the mean, you will figure out that it is 96 divided by 8, which is 12. That's the mean. 12. I'm sorry, this number is 12. Okay, now rewrite the numbers, because you have to figure out how much each number is away from the mean. So rewrite the numbers, then write down your mean, which is in this case 12. Now figure out the distance from the mean. So the first one is 7 away from the mean. Got it? 12 take away 5. So on a number line, how would it, not on a number line, but if 12 was here, if that's 12 and this is 7, how far is 7 away from 12? That's what we are looking at. Oh, sorry, this was 5. So how far is 5 away from 12? It's 7 away from 12. That's what we are looking at. And then 8 is 4 away from 12. This 8 also 4 away from 12. This 10 is 2 away from 12. 13 is 1 away from 12. So how much is the distance? 14 is 2 away, 16 is 4 away from 12, and 22 is 10 away from 12. So this is your second step. Your third step is where you have to find the mean of all these numbers. So if you notice, we figured out the distance. So this was the distance from the mean. And then I added up, and this is your third step, sum of all the distances. So I added up the 7, 4, 4, 2, 1, 2, 4, 10. And now we end up with 34 over 8, which gives us, again, it is 8 values, so which gives us 4.25. All right, now look at 12. From 12, and then we found the distance. Finally, we figured out the sum, and then we figured out the mean again of this. So basically, that's what we did. Final step is to interpret the data. And when you interpret the data, this is what you say. What you say is that the data values differ. I'm going to write it here. The data values differ from the mean by an average of 4.25. Now in this case there was no unit given in the actual problem, so we just leave it at that. Alright, let's do the next problem. Alright, I just gave myself a little bit room here so that it's more clear. It says find and interpret the mean absolute deviation of the data. Round your answer to the nearest tenth if needed. They are giving you the weights of book bags in pounds. So remember, that should be included in your final interpretation. If not, then it's going to be a problem. Okay, first let's find the mean of this data. We know how to find the mean of the data. So when you add everything up, you end up with 88. You're dividing with 8. Your mean is 11. I have to see the setup step and this total here, and then this mean. Okay. Your second step is to find the distance of these values, all these values, from the given mean. So write down your data values, and then write down the mean here, which we got as 11. Now find the distance of the number from the mean. So 12 is 1 away from the mean, 7 is 4 away, 15 is 4 away, and then 8 is 3 away, 9 is 2 away, 13 is 2 away, 10 is 1 away, and 14 is 3 away. Okay. Now we have to find the sum of these values. Basically sum and then find the mean, and then the mean of these values. So when you add up all the 8 values, you end up with 20 over 8, which is 2.5. Okay, now let's go to the interpretation part. To interpret this, we are going to say that since it is the weight of book bags, we are going to say the weight of book bags differs from the mean by 2.5 pounds. Now what that means is this weight, because we got a mean absolute deviation of 2.5, the actual weight differs from this mean, the 11, by 2.5. That's what we are finding out. Okay. All right. Let me quickly show you what I mean by interpretation in the rest of the problems. In this number 3, what I need you to do is to look at the bags of candy. So your final interpretation would be something in the lines of the data values differ from the mean by an average of so many pieces of candy. So that's how you're going to say. Similarly here, in this case it's the number of fish in the aquarium, so in the end you're going to say the data values differ from the mean by an average of, the data values differ from the mean by an average of so and so number of fish. Okay, now if you need, look in your book to figure out how to exactly word it. Finish the 3 problems, 3, 4 and 5, and I'll see you next class.